Male versus Female, Evaluating Differences in Gesture,
by Leah Salamone,
Paige Provost,
and Emelia Cail.
Our group video will focus on gesture, specifically the difference between women gesturing with women and men gesturing with men.
We will videotape each one of these scenarios separately and compare and contrast how each specific category changes the dynamic of conversation through gesture.
We will draw on several readings and articles from class that explain gesture and outside readings that discuss the differences between gestures among male and female genders. Let's start from the beginning. We found two researchers who supported our idea that gesture is an innate ability of both sexes, but develops differently. Oscar Liskin and Golden Meadows say that, despite the fact that the boys and girls did not differ in the numbers and types of gestures they used, they did differ in the onset of their supplementary G and S combinations. As predicted, boys began producing supplementary G and S combinations later than girls. In this study, G represents gesture and S represents speech. This study assesses the difference in gesture and speech progression among boys and girls. The findings proved that girls produce gesture and speech earlier in development than boys do. Chipman and Hampson add, first and foremost, they suggest that the female advantage in gesture production emerges early in life, i.e. in children at least as young as 3 years of age. Second, they illustrate the generalizability of the sex difference to imitation tasks that employ different types of gestures and different numbers of gestures. They add support to the hypothesis that females are more efficient than males on tasks of limb praxis, and they are consistent with clinical research demonstrating a sex difference in the anatomical organization of the praxis system. We want to be clear here that we are not suggesting that boys are not as intelligent as girls. Instead, we are indicating that females seem to have an advantage, proved in this study, in gesture and speech development over boys, according to the anatomical organization of the praxis system.
Here is a visual aid provided by Oscar Liskin and Golden Meadow. It is a summary of children's gesture production by age and sex of the child. It compares the development of gesture tokens, deictic gestures, conventional gestures, and iconic gestures between girls and boys over a span of 34 months. Overall, the data shows that in almost every case, by 34 months, besides deictic gestures, girls have produced more gestures than boys. Our main focus is on the 34-month column highlighted in the chart.
Now let's move to our research background. The conversation started with us prompting the participants with the question, "What did you do over Thanksgiving break?" The conversation developed naturally within the two dyads as both conversations took a turn to something unrelated. The girls began talking about family in Wisconsin, while the boys began talking about the show, The Office. Our main focus is not on the topic of conversation, but rather the body behaviors that develop through their conversations.
Let's take a look at what gesture really is. Out of all of the articles we read in class, we found that these three definitions of gesture best exemplified the use of gesture in our research. Goodwin says that with their bodies, those present are able to provide and glean a great deal of non-vocal information about the substance of the talk in progress and the alignment of those present to it. Then, Bavos explains that interactive gestures, for all of their many specific forms and meanings, constitute a class with the common function of including the listener and thereby counteracting the beginning of a drift toward monologue that is necessarily created every time one person has the floor. Finally, McNeil states that gestures are symbols different from spoken language, however. They are created in contrast to retrieved by the speaker at the moment of speaking. They coexist with the words and sentences of speech, but are qualitatively different than those words and sentences. Let's keep these in mind as we finish the video.
We have provided several frame grabs that will assist you as a viewer to understand our findings so that you can pick them out when we see the full video. We refer to our female dyad as the Wisconsin girls, and we'll be analyzing their body behaviors first. Yang explains that women use hand-shielding mouth gestures while smiling and laughing. In this frame grab, Mary, pictured on the right, uses a hand-shielding mouth gesture while chewing to avoid seemingly impolite behaviors at line 5 through 8, shown here.
In this screenshot, Jess, pictured on the left, uses a metaphoric gesture to continue to engage with Mary. A metaphoric gesture is an abstract gesture that does not hold specific meaning to the conversation. This gesture occurs at line 5, shown here.
At lines 23 through 25, Mary uses another metaphoric gesture. In this case, Mary pushes her hand out to represent that John is now gone for good.
Here at line 22, when Jess says, "What?" she flips her hand so that her palm is facing up. This gesture shows that she is still listening to Mary. At this time, she is questioning Mary, which is directly correlated to her gesture.
We interrupt this presentation to gain some new insight from Professor Kidwell.
In my article, Demonstrating Recipiency, Knowledge Displays as a Resource for the Unaddressed Participant, I discuss the idea the speaker should be sensitive to recipient states of knowledge regarding their talk, and consequently design their talk for knowing and unknowing recipients. These knowledge states are used to maintain a participation status.
Throughout the whole encounter, Jess's body is oriented towards Mary. At line 28, Jess states, "That's rude," and stretches her body away from Mary, visually indicating that she is done with the conversation. Shegloff delves into the world of body torque and defines it as divergent orientations of the body sectors above and below the neck and waist, respectively.
Here to speak more about gender stereotypes in gesture is researcher Nancy Britton.
Throughout my research, and specifically in my article, Beliefs about Female and Male Nonverbal Communication, I discovered that gender differences in nonverbal behaviors and skills are not unlike gender stereotypes for other forms of communication. Women were believed to possess greater skill and involvement in nonverbal communication, consistent with general sex role stereotypes of women as more concerned with interpersonal relationships and the affiliative needs of others. Women held some beliefs about same-sex interaction that were not held analogously by men. Women perceived enhanced involvement and expressiveness in other women.
Good stuff. Judith Hall accurately describes many of the phenomena that occurred during the Wisconsin Girls video. Keep this in mind while watching the final video. Hall says that the direction of the effect is consistent with gender role stereotypes, and it is possible that females learn early, very early, judging from the results reported here, how a girl ought to act. This learning would probably not directly produce a performance advantage in judging nonverbal cues, but over time, the added motivation to relate to others expressively and practice at attending to interpersonal expression might result in females' superior judging ability.
Now we'll take a look at the full Wisconsin Girls video.
Did you end up doing that?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
I don't know. We had cinnamon rolls and we
Where'd you
talked.
go?
And, no, we just went to the house. And I sat there for like 2 hours.
Did you see your brother? Your stepbrother?
He's not home.
Oh, really?
He's in Wisconsin.
You didn't see him at all?
I haven't talked to him in like 2 years.
John? Isn't that his name?
Uh-huh.
What?
Mm-hmm. Literally, he got married, picked up, left, moved to Wisconsin, got a job, and then now won't talk to anybody.
What the hell?
I don't know.
That's rude.
I talked.
We refer to our male dyad as the office boys, and we'll be analyzing their body behavior next. We found that the boys' video clip generally has less gesture than the girls. Eddie, pictured on the left, uses a head nod here to gesture toward the television across the room when he says, "That Netflix original series," in line 21. Eddie uses a head point, somewhat of a deictic gesture here. A deictic gesture is one that utilizes space through a motion like a finger point. This shows how he doesn't want to move his body to gesture, so he just moves his head slightly.
In this frame grab, both of the boys have broken eye contact because Eddie is physically distracted by his water bottle. The conversation continues without eye contact for a short amount of time. Instead of focusing on Peter, Eddie is distracted by the Snapple bottle, which limits his full participation in the conversation with Peter.
Now a word from Charisse Kramer.
In my findings, I have found that the female-male division is a ubiquitous feature of the deeply tacit interpretive schemes used by most people in our culture for organizing our understanding of everyday language and communication strategies. This division is so basic to our view of our world that it is taken for granted by most researchers who look for more subtle categories upon which to structure their work. Yet it appears that commonly held expectations females and males have of their sex and of the other sex have an impact on their daily interactions with each other.
At line 24, Eddie throws the piece of paper on the ground, indicating that he is not as involved in the conversation and seemingly has nothing else to contribute. His body does not torque or otherwise indicate that he has anything left to say. This small gesture is indicative of how uninvolved both boys seem to be during the whole interaction. Now we'll take a look at the whole Office Boys interaction.
He's from The Office?
Yeah, he's in like the last few seasons of The Office. He's the boss. James Spader.
He's not a funny guy though. I guess,
No,
is
I
he?
don't. He's not. I mean, he played it off pretty well in The Office.
Yeah. Well, did he like take place for Steve Carell when he left?
Yeah. Or like after, like there was like a few people. Or some shit
Will
like
Ferrell
that.
did it too, right?
Yeah, Will Ferrell did it.
Who else did it?
Some black guy did. I don't forget his name. Charles something.
Just some random
Dude,
guy.
he was in the Netflix original series. The one about the African
Oh, Idris Elba?
Beast of No Nation.
In conclusion, our findings positively correlated with the readings, both from class and outside research we had done. Mary and Jess, in the Wisconsin Girls video, used gesture within their conversation to fully engage and display appropriate recipiency patterns. We had initially assumed that girls would have a higher level of gesture based on our own observations of the world.
This did in fact turn out to be true. Peter and Eddie in the Office Boys video, on the other hand, were lackadaisical and disengaged. There was minimal body involvement and minor twerking from each boy. Although the body movements were diverse, there is an apparent closing gesture in both men and women. Eddie threw a piece of paper on the ground while Jess twerked her body away from Mary to shift her gaze elsewhere.
Jess's final motion was much more obvious and defined than Eddie's final motion. This could be attributed to the fact that throughout the whole video, Jess was much more active with her gestures than Eddie was. Men and women show obvious differences in nonverbal communication and their engagement practices.